I always wanted attention in school, like to a sick degree. I don't know if you guys ever had this feeling, but do you remember when you were in elementary school, grammar school, and a kid in your class would come to school one day and you'd find out their grandparent had died? And they would get, like, so much attention. You know, the teacher would be like, Aaron's grandpa passed away, and he'd be like, that's right. And we'd be like, oh, Aaron, you know, and he'd be like VIP for the day. He'd be like, can I sit in the beanbag chair during reading time? I'd be like, of course, you poor fuck, you sit there. Forget the fact that there's a laminated construction paper list of whose day it is to sit in the beanbag chair, and we've all been patient waiting for our day. And let's even forget that the beanbag is there to teach us patience. You just jumped the line. Did you ever look at how much attention that dead grandparent kid was getting? And did you ever, like me, hope or maybe even pray please kill one of my grandparents so I can get attention too? I did do that. And some of you did too. And I know you did, because you started laughing from the very beginning of the joke. If you did, don't feel too bad, okay? Yes, it's a super dark memory. But you were a little kid. Also, you were a little kid. So you probably still had like 4 grandparents. This is a lot of grandparents. Is this too many? I don't know, I'm asking. Look, goddammit, I'm not saying you pray to kill one of the important ones. You don't want to kill your mom's mom, too special of a relationship. And you don't want to kill your dad's dad, because then your dad gets all weird. Kids, you think your dad's weird now? Wait for his dad to die. Then he goes on a whole quest. He'll want to take more family pictures, but be angrier during them. Talking about, can we get one photo where we all look nice? You're like, I don't think this motherfucker's doing that well. So you don't want to kill one of the important ones. But you could kill one of the unimportant ones. You know who. You could kill your dad's mom. Who even knew your dad had a mom? It doesn't seem like she did a very good job. Ask your mom if she thinks that your dad's mom did a good job and deserves to live. Of course not. She is an unpleasant older lady. She's never done nothing for no one. But she could now. She could die between September and May. Real talk, Boston? When I was in elementary school, my grandma died over the summer! It was useless. You can't be walking into school on Labor Day talking about, we lost our grandma July 17th. You should be over it by now. Get out of the beanbag chair. Well, I apologize for beginning the show on such a dark note. But I didn't want to start way too upbeat, you know? I've had a weird couple years. You've had a weird couple years. I didn't want to come out all phony, you know? Be like, ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, hey, Boston, it's time to laugh. Raise up your smiles, lower those masks. You know what I mean. We all quarantined. We all went to rehab and we all got divorced, and now our reputation is different. No one knows what to think. Hey, yeah. All the kids like Bo Burnham more because he's currently less problematic. Likeability is a jail. So we can't start that way. Thanks, I wrote that song. Before I begin, young man in the third row up there, what's your name? Henry? Okay, Henry, how old are we? 11? Okay. Haha, wonderful. You won't at all be distracting me throughout the entire performance. Henry, oh man. Henry, I don't mean this in a like, do you know who I am kind of way, but like, do you know like who I am, or did like a babysitter cancel and suddenly you were like in a van? You know who I am? Okay, have you seen me do stand-up before? Okay, all right, well, I appreciate you coming. So the things that I talk about tonight that I did recently. I never say this, Henry. I don't say this explicitly, but don't. All right? Don't. You're in the 6th grade? 5th? All right. Well, Henry, if you've seen me do stand-up before, I have kind of a different vibe now. When I was a younger man, I'd come out on stage and be like, hey, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And I wonder what caused that. Well, those days are over. That's nice. To make fun of people, you know, but it's so fun sometimes. I've written for some TV shows, and you know, on a major TV show, you have to be careful about what you say about people because a lot of people can get offended, or so it has been explained to me. I'll tell you this, I was writing for an awards show once, and I got into some trouble. I wrote a joke for this awards show that had the word midget in it. And someone from the network came down to our offices, and he said to me, hey, you can't put the word midget on TV. And I said, I sure would like to. And he said, no, midget is as bad as the N-word. First off, no. No, it's not. Do you know how I know it's not? I said to him, is because we're saying the word midget, and we're not even saying what the N-word is. If you're comparing the badness of two words, and you won't even say one of them, and about censorship at all, though, because as you probably have seen by now, you can basically say whatever you want on television. It's ridiculous. You can say anything you want. And if you don't believe me, you should watch a little program called Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Yeah, a show that I love, because on that show, you can say the grossest things you've ever heard in your life. No, you can't say like the F word. You can't say that on Special Victims Unit. But people walk around on SVU going like, looks like the victim had anal contusions. Yo, looks like we found semen and fecal matter in the victim's ear canal. Those are two real things that I heard on Law and Order SVU at 3 in the afternoon. Both spoken by Ice-T. Ice-T is a detective with the Special Victims Unit. He handles New York's most sensitive cases. I love Ice-T on SVU. He is fantastic. He's awesome. What's so great about him is that he's been with the SVU for like 11 years now, but he still treats every case like it's his first in terms of total confusion. Sometimes they'll be in the middle of an investigation and Ice-T will be like, yo, you telling me this dude gets off on little girls with pigtails? It's like, yeah, Ice. He's a pedophile. You work in the sex crimes division. You're gonna have to get used to that. You know how they try and tie in like current events to every episode of SVU? So there was this episode I saw a while ago that was about sex addiction, because a lot of celebrities had come out as sex addicts. So the episode's about sex addiction. There is a scene in the episode where the other detectives are trying to teach Ice-T what sex addiction is, and it takes a couple of minutes. And finally, Ice-T gets it, and they cut to him in this close-up, and he goes, oh, I get it. You mean like when someone drinks too much, or snorts cocaine, or bets the house on the ponies? And I was like, yeah, you got it, man. And I was psyched that Ice-T understood so that they could continue with the investigation. But I could have watched another 4 hours of Ice-T just naming examples. Just that close up. And Ice-T or like when someone smokes too many cigarettes, or like when someone shops too much with credit cards, or like when someone plays too many scratchy lotteries, or like when someone eats too much chocolate cake, or like when someone eats too much chocolate cake and then barfs it up. And he would just keep talking and it would slowly fade out and say executive producer Dick Wolf. That'd be my ideal episode. That'd be a good one. I also watched this show called Cold Case Files. On Cold Case Files, they solve old murders. And it's really interesting because what I learned from it is that it was really easy to get away with murder before they knew about DNA. It was ridiculously easy. Like, what was even going on back then? What was a murder investigation like in 1935? One cop would just walk in and be like, detective, we found a pool of the killer's blood in that hallway. And he would just be like, gross. Mop it up. Now then, back to my hunch. Look for clues. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll draw chalk around where the body is. That way we'll know where it was. Also, a couple of years ago, I saw this movie called Public Enemies with Johnny Depp. It was about old bank robbers and stuff. Here's how easy it was to get away with bank robbery back in the 30s. As long as you weren't still there when the police arrived, you had a 99% chance of getting away with it. To the point that, like, those old bank robbers, they take credit for the bank robberies. Like, they come running out of there and they're like, ha ha ha! And if anyone asks you, tell them it was Golden Joe and the Suggins gang. And then they, like, shoot Suggins into the side of the wall. It's like, what, were bullets free back then? And they don't even disguise themselves. They dress up for the bank robbery. They're rolling in there in, like, big suits and hats like they're going to church in Atlanta. They make a day of it. My prescriptions. Not the illegal pills I bought on the street. The official prescriptions with my name on them. And they took them from me simply because I had no business being prescribed them in the first place. But oh, the collection I had. All the effort, all the work that went into it. Do you know how hard it is to get a doctor to write you a prescription for a pill you don't need? It's not hard. It's so easy. It's so easy. Here's what you do, or here's what I did, but don't do it, but if you did do it, it would totally work. Okay. Go on like WebMD, search doctors in your zip code, okay? And then sort the results, lowest rating to highest. You will not need to scroll far. Find the doctor in your area with the lowest number of stars. This person needs your business. Is this a bad doctor? Nay, nay. This is the best doctor. Dude. You can walk in there, and it's like Captain Phillips. You can be like, look at me. I am the doctor now. You can use their computer. Check Yahoo News or something. I had a doctor in New York City that just wrote me prescriptions. Dr. Michael, no last name. Oh, I don't mean I'm protecting his identity. He never told me his last name. Even before the pandemic, Dr. Michael worked out of his apartment on 2nd Avenue. That's odd. I'd go to see Dr. Michael, and I'd knock on his door, and he'd always answer the door like this. He'd go, "My wife Minerva is sleeping." Like really paranoid. But he wasn't saying, "So keep your voice down." It was as if he was saying, "I didn't just kill my wife Minerva." So then we'd go into his kitchenette. To call it a kitchen would be a great exaggeration. And we'd have our appointment. I'd go, "I want Klonopin." And he'd go, "Okay." And as he was writing it out on the pad and tearing it off, he'd go, "Oh, what's it for?" And I'd go, "I have anxiety." And he'd go, "Oh, then you need it." And then Dr. Michael, he'd always go, "Hey, you want a flu shot?" Aww. He wanted to be like a real doctor. I go, "No, Michael, you already gave me 2 flu shots this month, man. I feel crazy. I feel super sick." And he'd go, "Do you want a B12 shot? You want a vitamin shot?" So he always wanted to give me a shot of some kind because he had like a thing. I mean, look, a guy named Dr. Michael that works out of his apartment is gonna have a thing. Michael's thing was he wanted guys to take their shirts off in his apartment. You're all uncomfortable now, but I'm way over it. And also, if you think this story ends with me being like, "And I said, absolutely not," you're about to be so disappointed. So we had this little like charade. I'd roll up my t-shirt sleeve and Michael would come in with the syringe and he'd go, I'm gonna need the whole shirt off." I'd be like, 30 Klonopin, 2 refills, whoop. And then the sexual harassment would stop, to be fair. So maybe that was his whole thing, was just getting guys to take their shirts off. Or maybe there was something about me with my shirt off that stops sexual harassment. You know, that story has 2 morals. One, now you know that. You didn't used to. The other moral is this: you should get vaccinated and get a booster and all of that. But these days, when you hear people be like, "Just trust doctors." Anytime you hear someone say, "Trust doctors," just remember, somewhere in a kitchenette sits Dr. Michael. And if he's so trustworthy, why is Minerva always sleeping? So they took my prescriptions. They take my prescriptions. Now this was all at 4 o'clock in the morning when I first checked into rehab. Let's flash forward 12 hours now to 4 p.m. that same day as rehab. I had to go to detox for like 4 or 5 days when I first got there because of everything in my system. I'm in my hospital room. I've been in rehab at this point for 12 hours. I have not gone to sleep during that time. And my total time awake to this point is 50 hours. Now, the doctors are trying to give me a bunch of medication to calm me down. But by this point in my life, my tolerance for sedatives was superhuman. No matter what they give me, they cannot subdue me. I'm like the great Rasputin. They cannot bring me to my knees. Just then, a legitimately good doctor walks into my hospital room. If you have only been seeing Dr. Michael for the past few years, a good, legitimate doctor is terrifying. It's like an exorcist. This guy walked in like, "Hi, I'm Dr. Henry Fortescue." I was like, "No, 2 names." No. Oh, hey, you want my shirt off, huh? You like this? You like stuff? What kind of a doctor are you, huh? Is your wife dead? Shh. I scream at this doctor. I go, "Where's my Klonopin?" "We cannot give you your Klonopin." "Why not?" "We are a rehab. I cannot give you a Schedule II narcotic under Pennsylvania state law." And I said, "Pennsylvania state law? Well, what if we go to a pharmacy in New Jersey?" You see, I thought he was telling me about a predicament that we were both caught up in. Like, he was like, "Look, I would love to give you these pills. You are clearly a super chill young man, bobbing and weaving in a hospital gown and a pair of New Balance sneakers for the past 12 hours. But this pesky state of Pennsylvania, oh, doctor, what if we go to a pharmacy in New Jersey?" Oh my God, no one has ever thought of that. You're the first drug addict here to have a scheme. Let's go in my car. You're clearly ready to leave the grounds. That was at 4 p.m. 3 hours later, 7 p.m., I finally go to sleep. They give me enough of this drug called Librium, and I drop. They put a nurse in my hospital room to make sure I stay asleep, because I had been trouble. I'm not sure what it was exactly that got them so worried, but it might have been when I said, "I'm gonna pretend to go to sleep. And then when you're all like, 'He's asleep,' and you leave my room, I'm gonna run the fuck out of this rehab." Something about saying that out loud twice to 2 different staff members had raised a few eyebrows. So now I'm asleep, though. I'm legitimately out cold. They have a nurse in my room to make sure I stay asleep. She's sitting in a chair next to a bedside table. I'm asleep in the bed. My phone is face up on the bedside table next to her. Now, at this exact same time, about 7 p.m., my good friend Pete Davidson starts calling me. Pete, yes, that one. Pete was not at my intervention because he was traveling that night. But now he's landed, he's found out I'm in rehab, and he's concerned. So he starts calling. Fun fact about Pete. He changes his cell phone number constantly. I don't know why. That's his journey. But every month and a half, I get a text from Pete, and it says, "Yo, it's Pete, new number." And I go, "Send a pic to prove it." And he sends a photo like this. And then I save him in my phone. For a long time, I just kept saving him again and again as Pete Davidson. At one point, I had 9 Pete Davidsons saved in my phone. And that's too many Pete Davidsons! So, I started to save him under fake famous people's names, just to mix it up. Like, for a while, he was saved in my phone as Rodney Dangerfield. The week I went to rehab, he was saved in my phone as Al Pacino. So, I'm asleep in bed. A nurse is watching over me. My phone is next to the nurse. And Pete Davidson starts calling again and again and again. But what the nurse sees on the phone is that this unconscious patient is getting not one, not two, but 5 missed calls from Oscar winner Al Pacino. So, she fucking wakes me up. I don't blame her. When I was a little kid, no one cared what I thought. Sometimes people would say, what do you think you're doing? But that just meant stop. They didn't actually want to know my thought process. They didn't want me to be like, well, I was gonna put this bottle rocket into this carton of eggs so that when I lit off the bottle rocket, the eggs would explode everywhere. Oh, well, that's very interesting. And what brought you to this experiment? Oh, well, thank you for asking. Well, you know how I'm filled with rage? I'm so horny and angry all the time, and I have no outlet for it, so eggs. Like, I travel alone sometimes, you know, and I'll put up with anything, you know. Like, I'll book a ticket on some garbage airline, you know. I don't want to name an actual airline, so let's just make one up. Let's call it, like, Delta Airlines. So I'll book a ticket on Delta Airlines. And I'll show up at the airport, and I go, can I get on the plane now, please? And they go, no, it's delayed 9 hours. And I go, okay, and then I go to the bathroom. And then I come out of the bathroom, and I go, any updates? And they go, yeah, we took off while you were in the bathroom because we hate you. Now take this meal voucher that doesn't work. Go, fetch. And I go, okay, and I go over to the Wolfgang Puck Express, and I go, can I have a sandwich, please? And they go, no! And I go, okay. And they go, you're a little fat girl, aren't you? And I go, no. And they go, say it. And I go, I'm a little fat girl. And then I go over to the Delta Help Desk, which is an oxymoron, and I go, can I please go home on an airplane? And they go, no. In fact, we're gonna frame you for murder. And you're gonna go to jail for 30 years. And I go, why are you doing this to me? And they go, because we're Delta Airlines. And life is a fucking nightmare. But with my girlfriend, she would just be like, let's see if Southwest has any flights. So it's better. A lot of people before I got engaged, you know. And I heard this expression about whether or not you should get married. This is an old expression. People say this. They say, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? You ever heard that before? It's a bananas insulting expression to an entire gender. But also, it makes no sense. Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? You're not allowed to milk a cow that you don't own. That's not even a situation. Was that a problem at one point? Like in the dairy community? Was that happening like 100 years ago in some village? Some Dutch prick was sneaking in at night being like, ah ha ha, I take your milk. And the farmer was like, well then this is your cow now. And he was like, no, no proof of purchase. And he ran off into the night. That sounded Dutch, right? You know what that expression means? It means, why would you marry a woman if she's already having sex with you? Which has nothing to do with what relationships are even like anymore. Now it's like, why buy the cow, question mark? Maybe because every day the cow asks you when you're gonna buy it, and you live in a really small apartment with the cow, so you can't avoid that question at all. And also the cow is way better at arguing than you are, and the cow grew up in a family that knows how to argue. Why buy the cow? Question mark. Maybe because every time another cow gets bought, you have to go to the sale, and you have to sit next to your cow at the sale, and your cow looks over at you the entire time like, and does not enjoy the sale at all. Even though she's the one that wanted to go to the sale. And she's especially mad because that farmer and cow met like 8 months after you guys met. Why buy the cow? Well, let's be real here. You're very lucky to have the cow that you do have. Roping in cows and getting milk out of them was never anything you were known for, John. By the most liberal of estimates, there have been about 8 cows total, several unmilked, and a lot of people think that you like bulls, and if you just they assume it. When you search your name, the third thing to come up is like John Mulaney bull, question mark? And if you just bought the cow, nobody would say that anymore. They'll still say it. Because there are those guys who they buy a cow and then on the side, total matador. But for real, Chicago, why buy the cow? Let's be real. Why buy the cow? Because you love her. You really do. And yeah, sure, she's a bossy little Jew, but she takes care of you, and you don't want to be some old man stumbling around like, hey, you seen any loose milk? My prescriptions. Not the illegal pills I bought on the street. The official prescriptions with my name on them. And they took them from me simply because I had no business being prescribed them in the first place. But oh, the collection I had. All the effort, all the work that went into it. Do you know how hard it is to get a doctor to write you a prescription for a pill you don't need? It's not hard. It's so easy. It's so easy. Here's what you do, or here's what I did, but don't do it, but if you did do it, it would totally work. Okay. Go on like WebMD, search doctors in your zip code, okay? And then sort the results. Lowest rating to highest. You will not need to scroll far. Find the doctor in your area with the lowest number of stars. This person needs your business. Is this a bad doctor? Nay, nay. This is the best doctor. Dude. You can walk in there, and it's like Captain Phillips. You can be like, look at me. I am the doctor now.